Good morning, third grade. The sun is shining. It's chilly, but it looks really nice outside. So I hope you get a chance to go out and play and get some fresh air. Um, oh, there's some dust in my house. I gotta clean this place up. If you remember that Harry used the Marauders map and he snuck into Hogsmeade and they're at the Three Broomsticks and they're having butterbeer, and then all of a sudden the Minister of Magic walks in with Professor McGonagall and Flitwick and Hagrid, and then Madame Rose Merita's there, and they're all going to sit down and have a drink. And then Hermione, really cool, is like, woof, and moves the Christmas tree over so that it kind of blocks them, and Harry's underneath the table, and they're about to start talking, and this is really important and crazy. So, what brings you to this neck of the woods, Minister? Came Madame Rose Merita's voice. Harry saw the lower part of Fudge's thick body twist in his chair, as though he was checking for eavesdroppers. Then he said in a very quiet voice, "What else, my dear, but Sirius Black? I dare say you've heard what happened up at the school on Halloween." "I did hear a rumor," admitted Madame Rose Merita. "Did you tell the whole pub, Hagrid?" said Professor McGonagall exasperately. "Do you think Black's still in the area, Minister?" whispered Madame Rose Merita. "I'm sure of it," said Fudge shortly. "You know that the Dementors have searched my pub twice," said Madame Rose Merita, a slight edge to her voice. "They scared all my customers away. It's very bad for business, Minister." "Rose Merita, my dear, I don't like them any more than you do," said Fudge uncomfortably. "Necessary precaution. Unfortunate, but there you are. I've just met some of them. They're in a fury against Dumbledore. He won't let them inside the castle grounds." "I should think not," said Professor McGonagall sharply. "How are we supposed to teach with those horrors floating around?" "Hear, hear," squeaked tiny Professor Flitwick, whose feet were dangling a foot above the ground. Remember, he's a really short guy, and so probably him up on that stool is kind of like a little kid up on a stool. I'm sure you guys are taller than Professor Flitwick, whose feet were dangling a foot from the ground. "All the same," demurred Fudge, "they are here to protect you all from something much worse. We all know what Black's capable of." "Do you know, I still have trouble believing it," said Madame Rose Merita thoughtfully. "Of all the people to go over the dark side, Sirius Black was the last I'd have thought. I mean, I remember him when he was just a boy at Hogwarts. If you'd told me then what he was going to become, I'd have said that you'd had too much to drink." "You don't know the half of it, Rose Merita," said Fudge gruffly. "The worst he did isn't widely known." "The worst?" said Madame Rose Merita, her voice alive with curiosity. "Worse than murdering all those poor people on that street, you mean?" "I certainly do," said Fudge. "I can't believe. What could possibly be worse?" "You say you remember him at Hogwarts, Rose Merita," murmured Professor McGonagall. "Do you remember who his best friend was?" "Naturally," said Madame Rose Merita with a small laugh. "Oh, you never saw one without the other, did you? The number of times that I had those boys in here, they used to make me laugh. Quite the double act, Sirius Black and James Potter." Harry dropped his glass with a loud thunk. Ron kicked him. "Precisely," said Professor McGonagall. "Black and Potter, ringleaders of their little gang. Both very bright, of course, exceptionally bright, in fact. But I don't think we've ever had such a pair of troublemakers." "I don't know," chuckled Hagrid. "Fred and George Weasley might give 'em a run for their money." "You'd have thought Black and Potter were brothers," chimed in Professor Flitwick. "They were inseparable." "Of course they were," said Fudge. "Potter trusted Black beyond all of his other friends. Nothing changed when they left school. Black was the best man at James. When James married Lily, he was the best man in their wedding. Then they named him godfather to their son Harry. Harry has no idea, of course. You can imagine how the idea would torment him. Because Black turned out to be in league with you-know-who, whispered Madame Rosmerta. Worse even than that, my dear. Fudge dropped his voice and proceeded in sort of a low rumble. Not many people are aware that the Potters knew you-know-who was after them. Dumbledore, who was of course working tirelessly against you-know-who, had a number of useful spies. One of them tipped him off, and he alerted James and Lily at once. He advised them to go into hiding. Well, of course, you-know-who wasn't an easy person to hide from. Dumbledore told them that their best chance was the Fidelius charm. How does a Fidelius charm work? Said Madame Rosmerta, breathless with interest. Professor Flitwick cleared his throat. It's an immensely complex spell, he said, squeaking, involving a magical concealment, which means like a way to hide. So a magical concealment of a secret inside of a single living soul. The information is hidden inside the chosen person, also known as the secret keeper, and it is henceforth impossible, the location is henceforth impossible to find, unless, of course, the secret keeper chooses to tell you. As long as the secret keeper refused to speak, you-know-who could search that village where Lily and James Potter were staying for years and years and never find them. They wouldn't be able to find them even if he had his nose pressed against their living room window. So Black was the Potter's secret keeper, whispered Madame Rosmerta. Naturally, said Professor McGonagall. James told Dumbledore that Black would rather die than tell where they were. That Black was planning to go into hiding himself. And yet, Dumbledore remained worried. I remember him offering to be the Potter's secret keeper himself. He suspected Black? Gasped Madame Rosmerta. He was sure that somebody close to the Potters had been keeping you-know-who informed of their movements, said Professor McGonagall darkly. Indeed, he had suspected for some time that someone on our side had turned traitor and was passing information over to you-know-who. Because remember, they're in a wizarding war. Like, things are really intense at this time. But James Potter insisted on using Sirius Black? He did, said Fudge heavily. And then, barely a week after the Fidelius charm had been performed, Black betrayed them? Breathed Madame Rosmerta. He did indeed. Black was tired of his double agent role, and he was ready to declare his support openly for you-know-who. And he seems to have planned this for the moment of the Potter's death. But as we all know, you-know-who met his downfall when he faced little Harry Potter. Powers gone, horribly weakened, he fled, and this left Sirius Black in a very nasty position indeed. His master had fallen at the very moment when he, Black, had shown his true colors as a traitor. He had no choice but to run for it. What a filthy, stinking rat, said Hagrid, so loudly that half the bar went quiet. Shh, said Professor McGonagall. I met him, growled Hagrid. I must have been the last to see him before he killed all them people. It was me who rescued Harry from Lily and James's house after they was killed. Just got him out of the ruin, poor little thing, with a great slash across his forehead, and his parents dead, and Sirius Black turns up on that flying motorcycle he used to ride. Never occurred to me what he was doing there. I didn't know it'd been him, Lily and James's secret keeper. Thought he'd just heard of the news that you-know-who attacking and come to see what he could do. White and shaken he was. And you know what I did? I comforted the murdering traitor, Hagrid roared. Hagrid, please, said Professor McGonagall, keep your voice down. How was I to know he wasn't upset about Lily and James? It was you-know-who he cared about. And then he says, give Harry to me, Hagrid. I'm his godfather. I'll look after him. Ha! But I'd had my orders from Dumbledore, and I told Black, no. Dumbledore said Harry had to go to his aunt and uncle's. Black argued, but in the end he gave in. Told me to take his motorcycle, to get Harry there. I won't need it anymore, he says. I should have known there was something fishy going on then. He loved that motorcycle. And what was he giving it to me for? Why wouldn't he need it anymore? Fact was, it was too easy to trace. Dumbledore knew he'd been the Potter's secret keeper. Black knew he was going to have to run for it that night. Knew it was only a matter of hours before the Ministry of Magic would be after him. But what if I'd given Harry to him, eh? I bet he'd have thrown him off that bike, halfway out to sea, his best friend's son. But when a wizard goes over to the dark side, there's nothing and no one that matters to him anymore. A long silence followed Hagrid's story. Then Madame Rosmerta said with some satisfaction, "But he didn't manage to disappear, did he? The Ministry of Magic caught up with him the next day." "Alas, if only we had," said Fudge bitterly. It was not we who found him. It was little Peter Pettigrew, another one of the Potter's friends. Maddened by grief, no doubt, and knowing that Sirius Black had been the Potter's secret keeper, he went after Black himself. "Pettigrew? That fat little boy who was always tagging along behind them at Hogwarts," said Madame Rosmerta. "Oh, he worshipped Sirius Black and James Potter," said Professor McGonagall. "Never quite in their league talent-wise, bit of a duffer. I was often rather sharp with him. You can imagine how I regret that now. He was so brave going after Sirius Black." She sounded as though she had a sudden head cold. "There now, Minerva," said Fudge kindly. "Pettigrew died a hero's death. Eyewitnesses, muggles of course, we had to wipe their memories later. They told us how Pettigrew cornered Black. They say he was sobbing, 'Lily and James, Sirius, how could you?' And then he went for his wand. Well, of course. Black, more talented, was much quicker. He blew Pettigrew into smithereens." Professor McGonagall blew her nose and said thickly, "Stupid boy. Foolish boy. He was always hopeless at dueling. He should have left it to the Ministry. I tell you, if I got to Black before little Pettigrew did, I wouldn't have messed around with no wands. I'd have ripped him from limb, Hagrid growled. "You don't know what you're talking about, Hagrid," said Fred sharply. "Nobody but a trained hit wizards from the magical law enforcement squad would have stood a chance against Black once he was cornered. I was junior minister in the Department of Magical Catastrophes at the time, and I was one of the first ones on the scene after Black murdered all those people. I'll never forget it. I still dream about it sometimes. A crater in the middle of the street, so deep it had cracked the sewer below. Bodies everywhere, muggles screaming, and Black was standing there laughing, with what was left of Peter Pettigrew in front of him. Stained robes and a few body fragments." Fudge's voice stopped abruptly. There was the sound of 5 noses being blown. Clearly they were all crying. This is a really sad story and a horrible thing about murder. "Well, there you have it, Rosmerta," said Fudge thickly. "Black was taken away by 20 members of the Magical Law Enforcement Patrol, and Pettigrew received an Order of Merlin, first class, which I think was some comfort to his poor mother. Black's been in Azkaban, the wizard prison, ever since." Madame Rosmerta let out a loud sigh. "Is it true he's mad, he's crazy, Minister?" "I wish I could say he was," said Fudge slowly. "I certainly believe his master's defeat, you know whose defeat, unhinged him for a while or made him totally nuts. The murder of Pettigrew and all those muggles was the action of a cornered and desperate man, cruel and pointless. Yet I met Black on my last inspection of Azkaban. You know, most of the prisoners in there, sitting and muttering to themselves in the dark. There's no sense in what they say. Everything good has been sucked out of them by the Dementors. But I was shocked at how normal Black seemed. He spoke quite rationally to me. It was unnerving. You'd have thought he was merely bored, asked if I'd finished with my newspaper, cool as you please, said he missed doing the crossword. Yes, I was astounded at how little effect the Dementors seemed to be having on him, and he was one of the most heavily guarded in the whole prison, you know. Dementors outside his door, day in, day out. But what do you think he's broken out of Azkaban to do? Said Madame Rosmerta. Good gracious, Minister, he isn't trying to rejoin you-know-who, is he? I dare say that is his, eventual plan, said Fudge evasively, but we hope to catch Black long before that, I must say. You-know-who, alone and friendless, is one thing, but give him back one of his most devoted servants, and I shudder to think how quickly he'll rise again. There was a small chink of glass on the wood. Someone had set down their glass. You know, Cornelius, if you're dining with the headmaster, we'd better head back up to the castle, said Professor McGonagall. One by one, the pairs of feet in front of Harry took the weight off their owners once more. Hems of the cloaks swung out of sight, and Madame Rosmerta's glittering heels disappeared behind the bar. The door of the three broomsticks opened again, and there was another flurry of snow, and the teachers disappeared. Harry, Ron, and Hermione's faces appeared under the table. They were both staring at him, lost for words. That is like the saddest chapter ever, because you hear all about murder and death and horrible. I'm going to put a link down below. I think it'll end up being over here, maybe over here. And it's this scene from the movie. The content is still the same, but how everything goes about it is wildly different. So let's do a compare and contrast with the between a film and the book, and I will go over that tomorrow with you guys. So I hope that you either do it mentally or that you write it down on your own paper or print this off and write on it, whatever works for you. And then we'll go over some compare and contrast. All right, have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.